So it finishes Manchester City 1 and Wolves 0. Just to remind you what that means in the race for the Champions League next season. At some stage, of course, this campaign, it looked like City would make it. They should be fine now, shouldn't they? Sitting on 64 points. They are 3 clear of Chelsea, or 4 clear, sorry, of Chelsea, who sit 5th. For more on this, let's welcome in Joey Frank LeBeuf, Julien Laurent. But before we hear from our French contingent, let's hear from Craig. Craig, look, first half this was quite good, and the second half it just went rubbish.
I got to go back to something Frank has said quite often, that he gets quite bored watching City. And I enjoyed the first half because Wolves are a different animal now under Pereira. You mentioned the 6 on the bounce, much better form, playing some good stuff, not prepared just to sit in, created chances, should have been in the lead before De Bruyne scored. But second half, it's just, I don't know what it is. It's passing for passing's sake. It's death by 1,000 passes. It's side to side to side. And I know Haaland was on the bench, but even when Haaland plays, even when Haaland is fit, and he is begging when they get it wide to stick it in the box, they, more often than not, they go back out, they go down the other side, they go back to centre-halves, and it's frustrating. And I understand that's where they've had their success with this possession. But for me, it's a little bit of overkill at times, and I didn't quite get Marmoush on the right-hand side either. I think he was a little bit isolated in the game out there. I think he's much better when he's playing a little bit more central. But it was 3 points. It was job done. But again, I go back to something I said a couple of weeks ago, or 3 or 4 weeks ago. I was almost sure, even before this game, City are going to get top 5. But what animal are we going to get next year? I think that is the big question. When they make those changes in the summer, when some leave and some come in, what kind of City are we going to get? Are they ever going to get back close to this dominating machine that they once were? I have grave doubts that they're going to be able to do that.
Frank, your favourite way of spending a Friday night?
Yes, thank you very much, Guy, for the treat. Again and again, same thing. Yeah, good, the 3 points. And it's only because, I think Wolves were quite unlucky at first, then after not really creative, that City got the 3 points. They were good the first half, they did what they had to do, but because of a good Doku. And again, I always put that guy on top of everybody because that guy creates something, creates a danger, change the pace of the game, try to overtake his opponent, and at least try to do something with the to unbalance the defense. The others, they go around and around us again, and they can be happy. As Craig said, that's more frustration that you receive because you know the talent of the players, they are capable of doing something else, and I really think that Pep has to evolve and for next season be prepared of offering something else to his fans and to us, because I don't think they're going to achieve anything if they carry on like that. That football is part of the past. So he has to, again, evolve and show us something else.
Yeah, that's it, Jules, isn't it? Has he got it within his arsenal to do that?
I don't think so. I think his style is what we saw tonight, and I don't think he will change. But I agree with the boys. This style is over now. This is finished. We are in a different era now where you have more verticality, you have more intensity when you have the ball, when you don't have the ball. And as we saw today, when you start with De Bruyne and Gundogan as your front two, really, it's all for control. It's all because you want to have 600 passes like they did today. 600 successful passes, great. It's twice more than the opposition. But what did we see really? The only time they had a bit of verticality, they scored a goal. And yet, most of the time, they just never really went forward in the same way. So I think it's disappointing. I really believe that this kind of Guardiola style, for me, is in the past now.
Dare I say, do you think even the City fans are getting a little bit...
Oh, they can't be happy.
A little bit
You
bored.
can't be happy watching that every... Considering what you've seen in the past and how you've been tearing teams apart. Like in the past, you're 1-0 up against Wolves, you kick on, then it's 3 or 4.
You look at you look at Premier League this season, top teams. I know Arsenal haven't been at the best, but last year and this year, Liverpool, Jules mentioned it, how quickly when they win it, they go from back to front. You look at Barcelona. Yeah, they can play the tippy-tappy football. They can pass it, they can keep it, but they want to get it to Rafinha and Lamine Yamal as quick as they can so that they can get it to Lewandowski, with Dani Olmo or Fermin Lopez supporting, whoever it is. they play a quicker game and they squeeze it with that high line and they squeeze up to try and do that. You look at Liverpool, both under Klopp and under Slot, it's maybe been a little bit more methodical under Slot, but not that much. They still like to get it forward quickly and don't allow teams to get back and defend. And Arsenal, in a sense, when Arsenal are at their best, that's what they do. They break quickly. For City, you see that now and again, but they're more happy to take the sting out of the game. What happens then? Teams get behind the ball. Now it's difficult. So you then have to go from side to side, back to the centre.
So why has it changed? Why has it worked in the past? And I know Rodri is a big loss, and I know...
Because they were moving the ball quicker.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
So can they get back to that level?
No, well, if they buy players to do that, Gundogan's not the player he was. Bernardo Silva's not the player he was. Kevin de Bruyne. You know, Marmoush has come in. He's a very good player from Frankfurt. He's very fast, he's very direct, but he's new. Doku is rash. They've signed Nico Gonzalez. He hasn't really played. He's more defensive. Rodri's to come back. But all these things, when they were playing at their best, these guys were at the top of the game and they moved the ball at such pace and usually in little triangles. You couldn't get near to them. But now it's so kind of pedestrian at times. It just allows teams that want to defend to get back in. And we know if you've got this sort of low block on the edge of your penalty area and almost 11 behind the ball, it's very difficult to break down. So I think City have to find a different way next year because I think the Premier League teams at the top have evolved. I mean, even when you look at Newcastle and Villa, they'll play a possession game, but they play an energetic possession game and a fast game. The only team that doesn't really do that out of the top, even Chelsea, first half of the season, very vertical. And for some reason, they stopped doing it. Yeah. But we waxed lyrical about Maresca going, my God, they're getting it forward into Jackson quickly. They're piling bodies forward. This is great. So the 5 or 6 teams at the top are all doing this, apart from Man City, who are still trying to play this slow game. And to be quite frank, it's a little boring.
Is there an argument to say, Frank? Yeah, but look, City have been so poor this season, yet look, they're third in the Premier League. They're obviously going to have Rodri back, make a couple of additions in the summer, and they're back to being a real contender.
Well, I wish them that. We don't know what's going to happen, but it's true that we made a statement about the Premier League this season, and I think we cannot be really happy with what we've seen this season, and it may be the exception to the rule, and we go back to the best championship in the world. But that wasn't the case this season with most of the teams and the inconsistency that we have seen. But yeah, they can be happy to be third. They might win the FA Cup. But I think Pep Guardiola said it all when in a press conference saying that it wasn't enough, that they weren't good enough. But unless they change the individuals, unless they get rid of, I'm sorry, with their legends, De Bruyne, Silva, Gundogan, and refresh the team and get Rodri back at his best, they won't be able to compete with Arsenal and Liverpool. That's as simple as that. And we don't want to see Manchester City struggling like they've been struggling this season. We want them to compete against Liverpool and Arsenal and maybe some other teams. But it won't be the case if they don't change the attitude, the pace that they have to get back, and of course the individuals that they need to have now if they want to carry on being one of the best team in the world.
Two of the most important positions that I've been in Guardiola's team have not been the most flamboyant, but have been the full-back positions. Very important for them how high they push up for a lot of teams. They've had, the good full-backs, the great full-backs that they've had have come and gone. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to win a Premier League title with Matheus Nunes at right back. They're not going to win one with Nico O'Reilly, who's a midfielder and has done a great job. So it's not just the other positions, it's the full-back positions they're going to have to go and address in the summer. And predominantly, they've been very important for him. When he came into the club, he strengthened those positions because he was asking so much of his fullbacks. Now he's going to have to go and replace them.
Let's talk about Kevin de Bruyne, shall we, Jules? Obviously, the winning goal tonight. Where's he going to go?
No, great question, Dan. He said after the game today on UK television that he didn't know yet. He had no idea. I think he wants to focus, and rightly so, on this end of the season. Like we said, he's got one more home game with City at the Etihad in the league, and then there will be the FA Cup final, 2 away games as well. And I think then he will decide. There will be, of course, the usual suspects like MLS and the Saudi League. But I think he wants to play Champions League football next season, and he still believes that now that he's fit again, and I don't know for how long he would be fit because he's getting older, obviously. But for now, that he said I've showed enough that I can play still at this level. I'm not sure who can take. It would be a gamble. Let's be honest. To get Kevin de Bruyne right now at his age on £350,000 a week is one, is not for everyone, and two, it's a massive gamble.
You can see him going to Spain or somewhere. That kind of tempo might fit him, but where?
Yeah.
He's not going to Athletic. He's not going to Athletic Madrid. Atletico Madrid, because that's just not a style.
No, and I don't think he's got any Basque in him, so he's not going to Athletic Club.
He's not from the Basque country, so he's not going to Athletic Club. Maybe Italy. I would hate to see him going to Saudi Arabia.
Right.
I mean, maybe he wants to go and get a pile of cash. That's his choice. But maybe there's more to the game than that. There's more to seeing out your career. There's more to getting to retirement than that, particularly if you've made enough money.
Sure.
I just don't see a fit in England for him either. Going in there and playing in a side that's never going to be as good as the Man City side, and he gets frustrated, you know, and that frustration starts to boil over when you're playing with players that are not doing the things that the guys that you used to play with used to do, and they don't see that picture, and that gets frustrating. So it's going to be interesting. Of course, he could come here to the States. He would do very well here, of course. But if he wants to play in a top league and still play in the Champions League, it's difficult. I think for me, it's probably Spain or Italy, maybe back to Germany where he's played before. But I don't see him doing it in England at one of the others, and that begs the question, where the hell is he going to go?
Frank, if you were him, where would you go?
It depends on my hunger for football or
money,
or maybe my hunger for money. That's what it is. I mean, I will be respectful to any decision that he's going to make, because if he decides to go to Saudi Arabia or the MLS and wants to slow down a little bit the competition with the highest competition with football, I will agree with that. And I've done the same, almost at the same age. So you have to know what you have inside, and if you still want to fight. I think the Premier League, and I totally agree with Craig, with Premier League is the pace and everything. Or maybe a club like Chelsea, we need a player with experience. But I already know that they're not going to get Kevin de Bruyne back. That's for sure. But Germany is going to be also hard for him because it's a fast football, and that's a good idea to think about Spain. Because they think the football a little bit more, and so they slow down a little bit more. But yeah, it's going to be hard to decide whether if he wants to compete again. But I think he has to think about his fitness and how he wants to finish. I always said it's better to show envy than pity, and that's something you have to think about.
So profound. Thank you, Frank.
It seems to me, though, that a guy that he has that hunger. Still, even though he might not have the legs and the energy that he once had, he has that hunger to still win things and for us to still be talking about him. And I don't mean us, I mean the media, the supporters. He wants to still have an influence. He still wants to have a presence. He still wants people to say, look at De Bruyne, look what he can do. And he knows if he goes to, certainly Saudi Arabia, nobody's going to be talking about him.
No,
right? It's a football.
It's like we saw Mane, didn't we, playing in the Champions League?
I mean, there's people pop up in Saudi Arabia, and when we see these odd clips, and you go, that's where the hell they are.
Yeah.
It's a backwater. You might get you'll get a lot of money and all that sort of thing, but you've gone. You're off the radar. And I just get the feeling with De Bruyne, he has this burning ambition just to be successful. I think he's shown that all his career. I mean, you can even see it in this game against Wolves tonight. After he gets his goal, a couple of times when players don't lay it off to him, when they play a bad pass, he gets frustrated. And I feel that he has this mindset where it really isn't about the cash for him. It's about finding the right home where he can finish his career, still being competitive and still being out there where people are watching him play.
So very much in the driving seat, as I mentioned, to finish in the top 5. But what about those other 2 places? Oh, the excitement. Here we are then, Newcastle, Chelsea, Aston Villa and Forest, of course, are battling it out for those 2 places. Forest somewhat shooting themselves in the foot yesterday after that defeat against Brentford. For Chelsea, they've got Liverpool this weekend.
By the way, I can't get away from this top 5.
Why?
Because we come in here and we're sort of infatuated with the top 5 because
you are.
No, I'm not. Right, and we all try our best. It's very difficult to get excited about it. And then I go home and my wife says, "Do you think Forest will make the top 5?" I'm like, "I don't care." She said, well, our son was at the game. He didn't play very well. I said, I want to get away from it, but
I hope she's just trolling you for doing that. That'd be awesome.
But the interesting thing here is basically Chelsea are pushing for it, as you know. The league table is there. They're in this conference. They're going to be in the conference final, but we can sort of give that a sort of sideshow. It'll come down to what shape are Liverpool in.
Surely they're in a can't be bothered shape, can they? They've just won the title. Like, what's the motivation?
I would imagine so. It just depends how much. Liverpool, when they were still going for the title, you kind of knew what you were going to get, although they sort of limped over at the end. We have absolutely no idea how many changes he'll make.
Yeah.
How
if Chiesa starts, we know.
The players have been celebrating, what mindset they're in, because there's nothing else for them to play for. So this is a difficult scenario for them. And I suppose if they beat Chelsea and beat them comfortably, that's not going to be a good look for Enzo Maresca.
Exactly.
Getting beat off a side who have their beat shots on and ready to go on holiday. So that's for me what it'll come down to.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it, Frank? This is embarrassing if Chelsea don't get a win against a team that's been celebrating winning the Premier League all week.
Especially if they're all drunk and still, so that could be a shame. And it's why I hope, that Liverpool players, they celebrated too much and their title. But Chelsea has to win against Liverpool because Liverpool will have no ambition with that game. Maybe just to show the pride for their colours, but I think they showed it, with the title, so they don't really care. And if Chelsea wants to get into the first 5, they have to win every game at home. So big pressure for the Blues, but a hard task for me, I think.
Jules,
Oh, get ready, Jules. Here we go.
What?
I don't know. I'm excited for your question.
Well, we've had this. No, I'm intrigued to know just what the remit is, if you've heard anything about it, for Maresca. I mean, the Conference League, that's not going to keep you in a job. Winning that and getting in the Europa League. How much pressure is he under to get into the top 5, and what's the scenario if they fall flat and they don't?
It's a great question. I think we talked about it as well last time I was on the show, because it's very much in the air. Craig, in the sense that if they miss out on top 5, and even you're right, if they win the Conference League, but even if they lose the final in the Conference League against Betis or Fiorentina, who will be the first decent team they play in that competition, because so far they played like part-timers and games with no interest whatsoever. So then I think there's a lot of questions within the club already, people above him, about not so much if he's a good coach or not a good coach, because I think he's a good coach. He's just a very young, inexperienced coach. This is his first ever season in the top flight football. Full season. He's had a few months in Serie A with Parma. That doesn't count. Leicester Championship doesn't count. So I think the question mark around him is more, can he actually take this team forward? Can he take this team to win the title at some point in 2, 3, 4, 5 years' time? And I think there's people at the club who are not too convinced that he's the right guy for that. Is he the right guy to develop young players? I think we all know that more experienced managers are probably better for young players, because as an experienced manager, you don't make some of the mistakes that we saw Maresca make this season, because he's a young manager. And young is not very good either. So I think there's still a lot of uncertainty around his future. But if he finishes top 5 and win the Conference League, I think that probably earns him another season.
Speaking of future, of course, there'll be a lot of speculation this summer about the future of Alexander Isak. Of course, has been fantastic since making that move from La Liga to the Premier League. Very much the star of Newcastle's show. Eddie Howe, speaking about his future today, said he is not for sale. From my perspective, I want to build a squad, and I want the strongest squad possible for next season. There's a lot to look forward to here. Hopefully, the end of the season is crucial for us. Newcastle, of course, away against Brighton before that big game against Chelsea. I get a feeling this is something we're going to be talking a lot about, Jules, yeah?
Yeah, and I think Eddie Howe is watching right now, so we can tell him you're not going to decide anyway. So we don't really care what you think, who you want to keep. It's not your call. So it's not on you. If the right price comes, for sale or not for sale, he's going, especially if Newcastle are not in the Champions League next season, because he's been very clear with the club. He has to play in the Champions League. He's one of the best number 9s in the world. It's mad that the guy didn't play any European football this season, and it's not right, and he knows it. So I'm sure Eddie Howe wants to keep him, and Tonali and Bruno and all these big players, but he's not the one that's going to decide. And I think Isak, if there's no Champions League football for Newcastle next season, will come and knock at the sporting director's door and the CEO and say, listen, I'm sorry, but I'm going.
Go on, Frank.
But that would be absolutely insane to see Isak going to another contender for the next season. I mean, to sign for Liverpool or Manchester City or I don't know, or Arsenal, because Arsenal needs a striker. That would be insane. I mean, that's putting the ballot into your foot, and that would be crazy because they have ambition next season. Selling your best striker, maybe your best player, is committing a kind of a suicide, and I wouldn't understand that. You can sell him to Real Madrid, maybe, or they don't need it, but to another club abroad. But to sell it to a contender in the Premier League will be absolutely crazy and not professional. I think, yeah, you need money, but I think you can sell Isak to another championship, but not the Premier League. I wouldn't understand that.
Alexander Isak is the type of player that gives you a gauge about what your club is all about. For your supporters, for the media, and for your own playing staff and your manager. Because he's the type of player, and it's not, when you look at a club's ambition, it's not just the players that they bring in, it's the players that they keep. Mm-hmm. And Alexander Isak is one of them where if Newcastle do want to build and push Champions League football, potentially, title charge, then they have to show that they're big enough and strong enough to see off any huge bid that comes in. Now, that might not please the player, and there could be some sort of offset to that. But it is a gauge to the outside world if people come in with 100 million or what it is for Alexander Isak, and Newcastle bat it away continually and say, this player is not for sale. When you start selling your top players, that's telling you have limited ambition. Now, there are other factors, of course, and I don't want to get into with the profit and sustainability. I'll leave that to others. But it is a clear sign to me, and it'll be a clear sign to Eddie Howe, and Jules is right, because he won't know, is how much are they going to back him and how much do they really want to keep their top stars and push. Because once you start selling your top stars, the dominoes start to fall and the rest of them want to go as well. Because you're playing your cards and you're not playing a very good hand.
Let's just remind you, shall we, of all the games that are coming up in the Premier League this weekend. Aston Villa, of course, looking for a result. They're taking on Fulham, Everton against Ipswich, Leicester against Southampton. Arsenal, meanwhile, taking on Bournemouth. Sunday, Brentford against Manchester United, Brighton, Newcastle, West Ham, Spurs, Chelsea, Liverpool. Then on Monday, big game for Forest. They're at Selhurst Park to take on FA Cup finalists. So then here we go. 5 games remaining in La Liga. Real Madrid have to win all of them. Barcelona will be looking to put pressure, though, on Carlo Ancelotti's side tomorrow. They're taking on already relegated Valladolid. For Real Madrid, they have got a massive game against Celta Vigo on Sunday. It's the early start. Celta Vigo currently sitting in 7th, and we saw what they've done to Barcelona in the past. Really interesting couple of games, Craig, because as much as we're excited about me and you, hand in hand, walking down the beach in Barcelona, what a moment that will be ahead of our Clasico. There is, of course...
Have you had that picture in your mind?
Since I started working here, Craig.
That's worrying.
But looking at it, like, for Barcelona, their concern is this game is very late tomorrow, in the fact that it's a 9 o'clock kickoff. We've heard already Hansi Flick complain about that, in the fact that they won't have much time to rest before they travel to Italy. Given that, what sort of 11 are we expect? Like, Lamine Yamal's not going to start, is
Big changes.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll test out his back 4 for the Inter game, what he thinks he might play. They won't have to do much defending. Could give Pedri a rest, because he's played quite a lot of football. Rafinha and Yamal, Probably Torres will play. Fermin Lopez. Valladolid have got, what have they had, 15 games?
They've got 15 games, what do you mean?
In 2025.
15, yes.
And 1 win.
Yes, yeah.
1 draw.
Yeah.
If you look at the stats...
It's so toxic at the stadium tomorrow because everyone hates Ronaldo. There's talk of all the money being thrown onto the pitch and everything as well.
So look at the players you really have to protect. Koundé's out.
Yeah.
He's not going to play Gerard Martin at Inter, so he might play him in this game. You have to protect Kubasi and Martinez because Emilio Martinez might have to go and play left back, and Kubasi's been fantastic. Pedri's definitely played more games than De Jong this season, there's no doubt about that, because De Jong was injured and he was out. So I think there'll be rotations. I would imagine at least 6 or 7 changes. Now, there is a scenario where you, and I know we've been sort of rubbish in Valladolid, but you still have to win this game.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, so it's not, you can't be sort of carte blanche, sitting in the dressing room with your feet up, laughing and joking, thinking the season's over. It's not over. So, but if you put another 3 points on the board, which they should, even with changes, the chances of Real Madrid slipping up the next day are actually quite high. So you still have to go out and do that job. So it's a juggling act, but it's a juggling act that doesn't get any easier because the timing is perfect. Because you're at home and you're playing the worst team by a stretch in Spain. So expect a host of changes, expect 3 points, and expect Real Madrid to have to go and do it again on a Sunday morning.
Just to a point, you're away against Valladolid. It is away.
Oh, away, sorry.
Away tomorrow, but as you say, you look at the 2 teams in their form this season, and it should be a cakewalk. From a professional's point of view, Frank, I imagine if you're in that squad, you're looking to kind of grasp this opportunity to show Hansi Flick what you can do ahead of the summer. And for Hansi Flick, you're just making sure, as Craig says, nobody is taking their eye off the ball.
Yeah, that's very tricky situation for everybody. Everybody wants to play. I mean, especially if you're a defender, and especially because your 2 fullback will be changed, so you want to get as we call automatism, and you want to make sure that it works. Especially you're going to play against Inter Milan, you will have to be good. Even again, if it won't be the same kind of game because you're going to be under more pressure on Tuesday than against Real Valladolid. But you need to make sure your teammate is ready. And if you are Kubasi, for example, you want to make sure that Eric Garcia, if he has to play, knows exactly what he has to do and really hears your commands when you are trying to cover him. But for the others, what are you going to do? You want to play, you don't want to play, you don't want to get injured. The coach is going to talk to you, what he wants to do. You have to win. You need the 3 points because, you want to keep those 4 points, spaces between you and Real Madrid. But you don't want to waste energy because of the game on Tuesday. So it's tricky. When you're a football player, you want to play. You're never happy to be on the bench, but you can understand that sometimes you have to rest.
For Real Madrid, meanwhile, Jules, the early game on Sunday, live on ESPN+. What's interesting with that, of course, is that kind of completely decimated back line that Real Madrid have. Obviously, we saw Rudiger, we saw Alaba, we saw Mendy, all having surgery this week. They're out for the rest of the season. Celta Vigo scored 3 against Barcelona when they met just a couple of weeks ago. Real Madrid come into this game, of course, with not currying much favour with the home fans either at the moment. Early kick-off at the Bernabeu. We talk about El Clasico. This is just as important, isn't it, for Real Madrid?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can add Lucas Vazquez, who will be suspended, of course, after the red card that he took for the game in the Copa del Rey final. So there's more. And I guess Celta Vigo is the worst team, really, that you could face this weekend because they're so good going forward in transition. That's what Giraldez does. That's how good they've been. That's why they're 7th in the table this season. And again, you would expect them to leave the ball to a Real Madrid team that has struggled to use the ball well anyway, all season long, whether it's 4-4-2 like Carlo says is his favourite, whether it's the 3 up front, whether it's okay for Celta Vigo, and they're going to hit them on the counter, and they with a lot of pace and with a lot of belief that they can go again. And it was a heartbreaking game for them away at Barcelona because they should have, they were very close of winning it, really, and they had a wonderful performance, and in the end they didn't. But it could well be at the Bernabeu instead.
Yeah, what's interesting, we speak to Sid, and he always says this is an expression in Spain, you've got X amount of finals between now and the end of the season. If you're chasing for the title, this is a final.
I can only imagine the atmosphere at the Bernabeu. Early kick-off, struggling, injuries. Barca have probably won. That atmosphere could turn very quickly if the game starts to get away from them. There's going to be a huge onus on this sort of midfield and front line to go and do the job in terms of scoring goals, because at the back, it's been a horror show. It's been a horror show when some of these players that we saw in the graphic were fit. So what's it going to be like now that, Tchouameni's going to have to go back in there? Who's going to play right back? Valverde? Camavinga can't even go back to left back because he's out. So it's Fran Garcia. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
And what's the scenario if Barca win?
We can do some maths.
If Barca win and Real Madrid lose, which is more than feasible, does that mean they can win?
No, not quite. We're not quite there. We're not quite lifting the trophy as we're there.
It can't be far off it.
It's very much close.
It can't be far off it.
Plus, of course, it's head-to-head, which is 4-0 at the moment. So that's almost an extra point for Real Madrid.
And I could see that scenario, and it's not a great scenario for La Liga. Of course, because if you go into the Clásico and you're only 4 points behind, and somehow you can manage to muster some sort of performance and beat Barcelona, which is a stretch, the way Real Madrid have been playing, it goes to one point. It's a lottery. It's just difficult to find a way to that scenario at the moment. But who the hell knows? Barca just need to make sure they're taking care of their own business. As for Real Madrid, if it's the Celta Vigo side that turned up at the Montjuic and playing these balls over the top quite a lot, and behind, and should have probably scored more, Real Madrid could be in trouble.
Frank, what's it like when you're playing in a back four of players that you've never played with you? It's very much all put together with a big old Band-Aid.
Well, especially if they're not their own position and they try to manage something because they play midfielders and they're going to play on the left back, on the right back. Well, it's a big duty, and if you are centre back, you have to try to talk to them a lot and to manage to compensate all mistakes they can make. But you have to also think about your own work, and it's complicated. But I mean, it's a challenge, and I've always been keen to those kind of games where, I played with John Terry. John was very, very young and he played right back. And you want to see that. You want to do that because you want to help him out, and it's always interesting. Now it's not the same situation and the same pressure that Real Madrid players are in right now. They can't lose. They can't prepare anything. They can't prepare the future. That's the present time that they have to sort the problems out, and that's being under pressure and big time pressure. So I don't know how they're going to cope with that. I've never been in that situation, but it's really tricky right now what they are in the middle in.
Just confirm, I think I'm right in saying, Jules, Lucas Vázquez can play because the ban is only for Copa del Rey. I could be wrong for that. And,
that's right. Yeah. That's true.
Well, there we go.
Whatever way
once every year I get something right.
Whatever way you look at it, it's just a nightmare for Ancelotti.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of Ancelotti, what's intriguing, Jules, and I still don't quite get my head around this. Say I've been chasing a girl for 2 years, and then all of a sudden I decide to say to this girl, "You've got to make a decision if you're going to go out with me by the end of May." And for some reason that might change her mind, because that's the situation with Carlo Ancelotti in Brazil, where apparently Brazil have given him a deadline to say, right, we need you to make a decision now. What? They've got absolutely nothing to work with here. They are not holding any of the cards. What are they doing?
The thing, Dan, is that imagine on your first date with that girl, Craig is coming along, and Frank as well, and me too, and we're there, but,
what a treat.
To get involved, but, yeah, what a treat. There's a lot of people trying to get into the deal, in intermediaries and agents and people like that, people who are supposed to come from the Brazilian FA, but not really, friends of Neymar, friends of Messi. It seems very messy, for no puns intended, and Carlo doesn't like that at all to start with.
Right.
Then I think there's things to still sort out with Real Madrid. It's not easy. He's got a year left on his contract. Do you pay him off that last season? Do you know who pays? Brazil? Do Brazil pay something to Real Madrid? They don't, which can make things a bit more complicated. But you're right, on the deadline. The deadline is maybe the most bonkers, because you can understand agent trying to get onto deals, right? The boys have had that when they were playing. This is what happens all the time for everything. But for Brazil, who I know there's an international break in June, so they will have 2 qualifiers there, but they will qualify for the World Cup. Everybody will. They're in no rush whatsoever, really. So why the pressure on Ancelotti to say, hey, we need an answer now, we need an answer now? There's no need. I think this will all be sorted itself. He will end up being the Brazil manager. Of course he will. But it's just a bit weird how I think especially the Brazilian FA are getting along with that negotiation.
Is he jumping from one fire to the next?
Definitely, yes.
You know, Brazil, getting the Brazil job.
Yeah.
You used to think about it, this is marvellous. I'm going to be working with the greatest, most flamboyant players on the planet. And they have some of those, but they have nowhere near the amount they once had.
Yeah.
They've got quite a lot of average players in this squad. And a bit like Real Madrid, they don't take kindly to bad performances and defeat either. And so is it really a good time for Carlo Ancelotti to be taking the Brazil job off the back of this dumpster fire at Real Madrid?
Yeah.
I'm not sure it is. I mean, what's wrong with retirement for some of these guys?
Carlo can't retire, can he?
I don't understand with some of these managers. It's like, you know, they're in their 60s, they're under pressure. It's a very, very stressful job. It's 7 days a week. I know international management is not. And yet they want to put themselves through the ringer year in, year out. And going from Real Madrid to Brazil will be putting themselves through the ringer again. Not on a daily basis, but whenever these fixtures come around, because this Brazil side is nowhere near good enough at the moment.
Dembele, we saw him go off, obviously, in the PSG Arsenal game. What's the latest on him?
Yeah, so the club and our sources are saying there's just a hamstring strain. So there's no tear. It doesn't seem to be that serious at all. He's going through his rehab process, which was planned pretty much since Tuesday night. And they're hoping, there's quite a lot of optimism, or some optimism, that because there's 8 days between the first leg on Tuesday and then the second leg on Wednesday in Paris, that he should be fit and ready to go for the second leg, which would be obviously massive for PSG. It's a different team with him or without him. But I guess they were reassured by the scans that he did today.
We'll say thank you very much to Frank and Jules. They'll, of course, be back for extra time. So taking a look at the top of the Bundesliga, Bayern Munich with the opportunity to get it done this weekend with a victory against Leipzig. For more on this, let's welcome in, shall we? Archie Rintut joins us. Archie, sorry to keep you waiting. Not, though, as long as Harry Kane's been waiting for silverware. Will it end this weekend?
Yes, it will.
Good.
Because
good. Thank you, Archie. Have a lovely weekend. That's it.
Sure. RB Leipzig are not very good right now, Dan. And even if Bayern Munich are going to have to do without Harry Kane on the pitch this weekend, he will indeed be in Leipzig along with Manuel Neuer, who also is unlikely to be. I mean, Harry Kane is suspended because of picking up his 5th yellow card. Manuel Neuer is still it's not quite sure if he'll be fit enough for this one. But such are the games that Bayern have left. It's difficult to see RB Leipzig, who, despite Schottler stepping in for Marco Rosa, since Marco Rosa was sacked at the end of March, RB Leipzig have been in such poor shape, and they're without leaders on the pitch right now in Peter Galassi and Willy Orban. And the fact that they gave the armband to Xavi Simons, who there's already talk about him after one game having that taken away from him, such is the way that his whole demeanour and impression comes across on the pitch as not being the biggest team player. So, yeah, even without Harry Kane, I think it's going to happen tomorrow.
Archie, Liverpool's celebrations, as exciting as they were, maybe weren't at the level they could have been because it was pretty much an inevitability, and it has been over the last few weeks, that they were going to win the title. Does the fact that Bayern have won this at a canter take away some of the sting from their celebrations?
I don't think it will because of who's involved in this. For example, the fact that it will be Vincent Kompany's first Bundesliga title, that Harry Kane has finally got his hands, or will finally have his hands on some silverware. I think that helps as well. And also, Bayern were a long way away from this at the end of last season in the shape of the team that they were in. And Vincent Kompany, whilst I think the job he's done has been good so far, not great, because greatness at Bayern is measured by what you do in the Champions League as well. And they got knocked out of the DFB Cup by Leverkusen. The fact that they have been able to assert themselves once again as a dominant team is something that is worth celebrating. And Bayern Munich, the rule is, if you win, fine. And winning the Bundesliga is seen as the first thing that you have to do in a season. And so it will be celebrated still in Munich, maybe not as vigorously as other past triumphs, but the fact that they've had to starve themselves for a year, which is a long time by Bayern standards. They didn't have a trophy at all last season. Yeah, I think they'll still enjoy it.
OK, let's go to compulsory Archie questions as you're on. What is Florian Wirtz's future?
Probably going to be somewhere else than Leverkusen, as we know. And I think the question is, his deal is up in 2027, and he's been quite well led by his dad, who's his agent, and there's never been any rush about where he's going. And there was a lot of talk in December that a new deal at Leverkusen was on the horizon. In fact, he was meant to be putting pen to paper on that, and that hasn't happened. And I think that this is related to that other whole game of dominoes as well, with what's happening with Xabi Alonso and Real Madrid. And it goes back to the previous conversation about what's happening with Carlo Ancelotti and Brazil. And I think you've got to see a few more of these dominoes fall over first before we find out what exactly will happen with Florian Wirtz. Bayer Leverkusen are wanting well upwards of 100 million euros for his services, which I can very much understand when you look at the impact that he has as a player all over the pitch, but also on his teammates. So yeah, there's still lots of whispers here about, well, you know, Bayern are really trying to put in all the effort, and Uli Hoeneß has made all the statements, all things that we would expect. But I would say that we are not much closer to knowing, sadly.
One last question, and you know exactly what it's going to be. You referred to it. As Jules says, Carlo Ancelotti will probably end up at Brazil. Xabi Alonso will probably end up at Real Madrid.
Yeah, I think you're right, Dan. I think it will happen. Alonso was saying in his press conference today that he has nothing new to say. And yeah, everybody's just kind of waiting right now.
There we go. And final question, what's behind your curtain?
A show.
Leipzig.
Oh,
City.
yes. Are you sure you're pronouncing that right? Thank you very much, Archie. Much appreciated. Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. Craig with us here in the studio. Frank is here. Jules, I'm hearing people are calling you Leicester these days.
Why?
The defence of your Fantasy League title has been so poor and such a one-off that it was never going to happen again. There we go.
Yeah,
it's not
maybe, but I've only one more than you. So
there we
so
are.
you can't talk.
Are you still trying?
No, everyone. My season's pretty much over.
No, but you're still trying.
Of course, I'm still trying.
Me as well in the rankings.
I'm definitely not behind you, Julien Laurent. Don't even start with that.
God, let me check now.
When do you have to fiddle it?
You have to fiddle it every week.
Yeah, like on a Thursday?
Well, yeah, it depends. Yeah, Thursday or Friday. You can fiddle it. Just a little bit. How are you, Frank? What's going on?
I'm good. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm very good. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's good.
You're
That's
19 points. You're 19 points ahead of me.
Yes, of course I am, Jules. Yep, no surprise.
I don't want to take you before the end, don't worry.
Okay.
Not a surprise.
It was a random question before we went
got
on air on the live show.
Oh, what was the question?
Frank asked
Yeah.
if he could do the show with his cat on
Yes.
his
Is your
lap.
cat still there, Frank?
But the cat has disappeared.
Yeah, it's very Mr. Bond villain.
It's gone. He went to sleep with my wife, so he's happy. You know, he's gonna hug her all night long, and I'm gonna be on my side, you know, alone. That's what it is. That's cats. They do whatever they want.
Listen, I only asked you about
live
your
in
cat.
their own house.
I don't want to know what your sleeping arrangements are. How's the cat? Oh,
Wow.
right, come on.
It's funny because Craig sleeps in a doghouse. Hey, right, for Craig, why is Blake getting more from his team than Xavi did in his last season, with Oma being the only new addition to the squad? Why is Flick getting better out of these players than Xavi did?
Well, he's He's been around the block more than Xavi. I think he's a better man manager than Xavi. He's very good with the players. He knows exactly what he wants in terms of how they're going to play, with the back line squeezing up. And there's just a much better feel about the place. Some of the senior players were falling out with Xavi.
Yeah.
Some of the senior players were criticising other players publicly. The whole thing just got a bit poisonous quickly. And when that happens, you never ever get a good top performance out of the players. Hansi Flick has man-managed this team thus far very, very well.
Meanwhile, Jules, someone has got quite the memory here, because at the start of the season you said Real Madrid were going to win La Liga by more than 15 points. Did you overestimate Real Madrid or underestimate Barca?
Did I say that 15 points? I predicted Real Madrid to win it. I saw both really, let's be honest here. I thought Real Madrid would do better. I thought Kylian would score that many goals like he has. This is pretty much what I expected from him, but I thought overall, collectively, they'd be better. I thought Carlo would find solutions to potential issues of having that front four not really working out and not working defensively too, but he has struggled, and I certainly didn't expect Barcelona to be that good and Flick to have that kind of impact on his first season. So I'm happy to hold my hands up and say I was wrong, but I don't think many of us saw that kind of season from Barcelona coming.
No, Luis Garcia did, but we know why. Meanwhile,
even if he thought, even if it looked like Barcelona were going to finish 8th, he would have picked them to win the league anyway.
Most definitely, go where the money is. If Barca and PSG qualify, who's your pick in the final, Frank? If it's a Barcelona-PSG final?
I have to go for PSG. Because I'm French first, and because I have to think that PSG can win. Yeah. I've been the captain of Marseille, but I love football, and I love the good football. And PSG is showing to the world a very, very good football. Barca too, but I think it can be the PSG year where nobody expected them to see them that high. They were quite poor. I think Craig mentioned that yesterday in the group stages. But they evolved so much. Luis Enrique had a message and a good work with the players, and it pays off really right now. And I want to see them winning. That's maybe the year where they can win something. It would be good for the French football.
Jules, how's your household going to be for the second leg?
I'm moving out again. I moved out last week and I'm moving out again this week.
Yep, back in the doghouse.
Exactly, with the kids as well, because the kids want PSG to win. So yeah.
Oh, I'm sure that goes down well as well, Jules. Well done.
We call it the doghouse. Yeah. We call it the Chateau de Bow Wow.
The Chateau de Bow Wow, see.
Chateau de Bow Wow.
Yeah, I'm sure it's well used.
Same thing.
That's yeah.
That bit, I mean, it's a final for the purists if that happens, isn't it?
I think Inter will have something to say about it, and Arsenal obviously as well.
Yeah, but it's looking, well, I don't know.
For Jules, ahead of next week's crucial Champions League matches, which option is better? Playing your strongest 11 to maintain momentum, or resting key players to avoid injury and keep them fresh?
I guess it depends on your situation in the league. From a PSG point of view, they have nothing to play for. The unbeaten run is over since last weekend. They are champions already. He's going to play his B team against Strasbourg on Saturday, and rightly so. And then maybe you can bring on somebody for 20 minutes to keep a bit of momentum. And I don't think he's completely good to just stop, but they would have trained. But yeah, in PSG's case, for sure, Arsenal can't really do that. Barcelona can't do that. And Inter Milan can't do that either. PSG are really the only one of the 4 teams in the semi-finals capable of doing something like that. So if you can, do it for sure.
Why can't Arsenal do it, Jules?
Arsenal can do it. They have nothing to play.
I mean, I think it's getting close behind, and they still have to play
shut up.
And Newcastle. Liverpool and Newcastle, which won't be easy. No.
Stop with your mind games.
I think for them, it's slightly different for them as well, because they haven't been good lately. They were not good for the first half hour against PSG on Tuesday. Then they got better, but they were not good in the league before against Brentford and against Crystal Palace and against Everton. All those games where they drop points. So I think for them, against Bournemouth at home, 5:30 kickoff tomorrow here in the UK, put a good performance in That's the best you can do with your strongest team before going to Paris on Tuesday.
What would you prefer, Frank, as a player?
I want to play. It's the end of the season. If I feel fit and you're in the race for something, you want to play. Even
yeah, but if you're PSG, you're not in the race for
I mean,
anything. Like, we're using PSG as an example.
I want to rest.
You want to rest.
I want to rest
in that case, I want to rest. Yeah, I want to rest. In that case, yeah.
Right.
I want to rest because I'm
I thought you were talking about Arsenal. I'm sorry.
No, I wasn't clear enough. I'm sorry.
I'm less worried about sharpness and that sort of stuff than I am about picking up an injury and missing this huge game.
Yeah.
Which can easily happen. So I'm concerned that I play. There's nothing to play for. I turn an ankle. Somebody smashes me, and I'm all of a sudden I'm out of this game. So I'm kind of. You're always, and when you go into games and you're on the sort of back foot, being wary, sometimes that's when things can happen.
Right, because you're not 100%
committed. You're not 100% committed and things. So I think the best thing is to, if you can, rest as many of your players as possible.
Frank, who's been PSG's player of the season?
Oh, well, that's an easy answer. I mean, Dembele showed to the world that he's back to his best, and he's been consistent. That's what we were asking to him for a long time, you know. And when he was in Barcelona, and then when he signed for Paris Saint-Germain, we saw 2-3 good months, and then he disappeared. This season, the guy has been there, you know, from first week to now. So. Yeah, Ousmane Dembele has been
First week to now,
well,
Frank?
You have to say that.
First week to now?
No. Excuse me?
First week to now is a little generous, isn't it?
Since the turn of the year.
Yeah, maybe, but you easily forget the past, you know, when you have a brilliant present, you know. So that's what it is. But you have to add the two midfielders, Vitinha and Neves. Absolutely fantastic as well.
Jules, who's been PSG's second best player of the season?
Yeah, Vitinha. I'll probably give it to Vitinha because he's so important in everything they do collectively with the ball and without the ball. And when he's capable of performances like the one we saw against Liverpool in the 2 games or against Arsenal this week, he's incredible. And when he's struggling, like away at Villa Park against Villa, for example, then the whole team is struggling. And that's how you can judge the impact on a player from a player on a team, is that if he's not on a good day, then the whole rest of the team, including Dembele, struggles a bit as well. But I agree with Frank, Dembele number 1 and Vitinha number 2.
That's a great midfield battle, isn't it? Fabian Ruiz, João Neves, Vitinha. I absolutely love the 3 of them.
Yes.
Love them. Great footballers. Partey will be back, Rice and Odegaard. And out of all those players, you know, we touched on this the other day.
On Odegaard?
The player that needs to do more in these big games and in this big game is Martin Odegaard. Somehow he's going to find a way to get the game by the scruff of the neck. Because if you think about the game at the Emirates, it was Declan Rice that was trying to drive them forward. Which he does, and he does very well. But that midfield 3 is so strong and so clever for PSG that Odegaard has to find a way to be in the game more. And if he's not, then they're not going to dominate the middle of the park. And if PSG dominate that, it's lights out. Because the signing of the front guys they have, doesn't matter who plays. Barcola, Doué, obviously Dembele plays, and Kvaratskhelia has been an amazing. I mean, not that we don't know, but when he left Napoli, he could have walked into any team. I mean, if Mo Salah was leaving Liverpool, you'd have driven to Naples, put him in the trunk of the car and brought him back. He's that good. He's that good. So if you don't dominate the middle of the park, PSG get the supply line to those boys, it's good night and God bless.
Is the criticism of Odegaard fair, Jules?
Yeah, I think so. Even before Tuesday, this hasn't been a good season for him. I think his injury came early in the season, which is not good. Then when he came back, it was Saka that got injured, which is not good. he had a baby for the first time, for example, which I don't know, because when I had my kids, I was not obviously playing, but I don't know about the boys. But maybe that also changes your routine, your day, your night, especially certainly at the beginning. Maybe that also has had some sort of impact on him. I don't know, but it's true that he's nowhere near the level that we've seen him play before, and the level that he should be at right now to carry this team.
And that is it, I think. Were you looking up anything you'd like to add? Who's sending you a message? Why are you being secretive? That's it. Thank you very much. We'll be back tomorrow, myself and Craig, to reflect on Valladolid against Barcelona, plus look ahead a little bit more to Real Madrid against Celta Vigo.